Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to this video. We are the team number 4 of the material of Cultura Inglesa, and we are going to talk about a discussion topic of the comparison between Mexico, the US, and the UK in the history of the radio and the television, and also how the issue of television censorship works in these three countries. The development of the radio and the television in Mexico, the US, and the UK reflects each nation's unique cultural and political landscape. While the BBC established a public broadcasting model in the British, the US embraced commercial broadcasting early on, and Mexico developed a mixed system with strong government influence. Television censorship varied significantly between these countries. The UK implemented a formal regulatory bodies. The US relied on industry self-regulation through codes, and Mexico experienced more direct government control over the content. This difference reveals interesting perspectives on how societies balance freedom of expression with concerns about protecting public values. Starting with the first country, we have Mexico. The radio in Mexico began in the early 1920s. In 1921, the first experimental broadcasts were made by engineers and enthusiasts. By 1923, the first commercial radio station, CYL, started operation in Mexico City. In 1930s, XEW, called La Voz de América Latina desde Mexico, the voice of Latin America from Mexico, was established by Emilio Azcárraga. This station became very important and helped create what would later become Televisa, one of the Mexico's largest media companies. During the 1930s and 1940s, radio became the main form of entertainment and information for Mexican families. Popular programs included radio dramas like radionovelas, music shows, and new broadcasts. Moving to the other hand, we have the television history. The television came to Mexico in late 1940s. On September 1, in 1950, the first official TV broadcast was made by XHTV Channel 4, owned by Rómulo O'Farrill. President Miguel Alemán Valdés appeared in the history broadcast. Shortly after 1952, Emilio Azcárraga, who already owned XEW Radio, launched XEW TV Channel 2. In 1955, the early TV stations merged to form Televisa Telesistema Mexicano, which later became Televisa in 1973. In the 1960s and the 1970s, television became increasingly popular. Televisa dominated the market, producing telenovelas, soap operas that became famous throughout Latin America. In 1993, TV Azteca was created when the government privatized state-owned television networks. This created the first real competition from Televisa. Moving to the next country of discussion, we have the history of the radio and the TV in the US. Starting with the radio history, the radio communication began to take shape in the late 19th century in 1895. Guglielmo Marconi demonstrated the first successful radio transmission. By the early 90s, radio technology researched the United States and began to grow rapidly. In 1920, station KDKA in Pittsburgh made the first commercial broadcast in America, reporting the results of the presidential elections. This marked the beginning of regular broadcasting in the US. During the same decade, radio quickly became popular with American families. This period is often called the golden age of the radio. By the 1930s and the 1940s, radio was the main entertainment medium in American homes. Families would gather around the radio sets to listen to news, music, dramas, comedy, and soap operas. Radio played a crucial role during the World War II, bringing news from the battlefronts into American homes. President Franklin Roosevelt used radio for his famous fireside chats to communicate directly with citizens. And now, on the other hand, we have the television history. The television development began in the early 20th century, but it wasn't until the 1940s that TV broadcasting became more widespread in America. In 1939, the NBC began a regular television broadcast with the opening of the New York World's Fair. However, the World War II slowed television's growth. After the war ended, TV production and broadcasting expanded very fast. The 1950s are known as the golden age of television. During this decade, TV ownerships grew dramatically, from about 6,000 sets in American homes in 1946 to over 50 million by 1960s. Popular shows include like I Love Lucy, The Twilight Zone, and The Ed Sullivan Show. In 1954, color television was introduced, though color sets remained expensive for many years. By the 1960s, TV had become the dominant media form in America. Cable television began expanding in the 1970s, offering more channel choices. The 1980s saw the rise of networks like CNN and MTV, while the 90s brought digital television technology. In the 2000s, high-definition TV became the new standard, and streaming services began to change of how Americans watch televisions.
Hi, my name is Eric Hernandez Chapa. Dear reader, I am pleased to present this brief summary titled The History of the Radio and TV in the United Kingdom, which explored the evolution of the British broadcasting from its early beginnings to the digital age. The history of the radio in the UK began in the early 20th century with the formation of the British Broadcasting Company, BBC, and 1922 this organization played a crucial role in providing news and entertainment, particularly during World War II, when the BBC became a trusted source of information for the public. Television development started in 1920 and 1930, made by first working system demonstrated by John Lowen Baird in 1926. The BBC launched the world first regulation a high-definition TV service in 1936. Song is house suspense during the war. After its reception in the 1946, television quickly grew in importance, especially during major national events such as the coronation of the Queen Elizabeth II in the 1953. Commercial broadcasting expanded in the mid-20th country with the introduction of the ITV in 1955, followed by Channel 4 in the 1982 and Channel 5 in the 1997. The transmission from the analog digital television between 27 and 2012, further transforming the viewing experience, providing greater variety and improved quality. This documentary highlights the case milestone in the UK broadcasting journey and its impact on the media consumption. Sincerely, Eric Hernandez Chapa.
I'm going to talk about television censorship in Mexico. Historical context: television censorship in Mexico has a complex history. Since the early years of Mexican television in the 1950s, there has been a close relationship between the government and media companies. For many decades, the ruling party maintained significant influence over television content. For much of the 20th century, the Mexican government exercised control over television in several ways. Nowadays, here are several types of content have faced censorship or restrictions. Example: political criticism of the government, controversial social topics, sexual content and nudity, religious criticisms, violence, thought enforcement has been inconsistent.
Okay, the next topic is the television censorship in the United States. In the early days of television, 1950 to 1960, censorship was quite strict. The networks followed codes that limited what could be shown. Even married couples on TV shows had to live in separate beds. A major change came in the 1970s when shows like All in the Family began to discuss controversial social issues. Throughout the 1980 to 1990, content restriction gradually loosened, allowing more adult themes and language. Today, streaming services like Netflix and Amazon Prime face almost no content restrictions since they don't use public airwaves. This has created a media environment where broadcast TV remains somewhat regulated while other platforms have much more freedom.
Hi, my name is Juan Emilio Guerrero Villanueva, and I'm going to talk about the topic of the television censorship in the United Kingdom. The main regulation body for TV in the United Kingdom is Ofcom, which replaced several other regulations. In Ofcom sets rules about what can be shown on television and handles complaints from viewers. Before 9 p.m., there was what is ruled that meant the program shows before this time, thus the suites for children. After 9 p.m., broadcasters can show more adult content, but there are still restrictions on every acceptable material. Over time, censorship has become less strict. TV was heavily censored. Today, there is more referral, but certain content is still regulated. Particularly, exercise violence, explicit sexual content, offensive language, material that might cause harm of offense to viewers, content that might incite hate.